So a lot of people mistakenly think that Moe Norman swung on one plane. There's nothing about Moe Norman's swing that was a single plane swing. There's only two things that can swing on one plane. It's either the path of the hands can be on the same path or plane on the way back that they are on the way down, or the club shaft plane can be on the same plane on the way down as it is on the way back. Neither one of those, the hand path is not on the same plane, and the club shaft doesn't swing on the same plane on the way down as it does on the way back. First, let's take the path of the hand. So we're going to mark the Moe Norman's the path of his hands on the way back in red, and then on the way down in yellow. Now, if you know what to look for, you can start seeing this over the top move that Moe Norman had. He would shove his hands out towards the golf ball. So now here is the path of his hands on the way down. So we're going to go yellow on the way down. The path of his hands on the way down is clearly well outside the path of his hands on the way back. So first, let's just take the path of his hands. There's not a swing that Moe Norman ever takes that he actually doesn't come over the top. So we're going to put red on the path of the hands on the way back and yellow on the way down. So you can see those hands start to shove out towards the golf ball. Here's the path of his hands on the way down. Okay, so the path of his hands on the way down, at least in these swings, is clearly outside the path that they were on the way back. So let's take these swings here. Here's Moe during a clinic. He's hitting driver here. Let's take the path of his hands on these swings. Now, I know this is kind of blurry, but we can easily see the path of his hands on the way down. You can see those hands shoving out towards the golf ball. Here's the path of his hands on the way down, and we're going to put a yellow mark right there, a yellow mark right there. We'll go one frame back, and we're going to check. We're going to catch that same kind of level with on the way back. So we're going to go, there's red on the way back, and we'll go one more path, red on the way back. Okay, yellow on the way down. Doesn't matter how many times you look at this, the path of those hands on the way down is outside the path that they were on the way back. Let's go this. He's going to hit. Now he's hitting irons again. Now we got another clinic here. He's got all these balls teed up. Let's take a look at the path of the hands on the way back. We're going to go put, again, red on the way back, red here, and now we're going to go yellow on the way down. So now those hands shove out towards the golf ball, and the path of his hands on the way down is clearly outside the path that they were on the way back. Now, when you do that, the problem with the hands, the path of the hands being outside, on the path of the hands on the way down being outside the path that they were on the way back, is it shallows out the club shaft, and it gets the club shaft dangerously out over the top of the golf ball. So we can see those hands come out, they shove out towards the golf ball. Here's the path of the hands on the way down. Absolutely well outside the path that they were on the way back. So we'd take another swing. He's got another fairway metal here. Here's the path of the hands on the way back. He pulls the hands back behind him, and then he comes over the top. You're going to easily see this sit well over the top. There's the path of the hands on the way down. And now let's take a look. Now, maybe it's not the path of the hands. Maybe it's the club shaft plane. Spoiler alert, it's not. The club shaft plane is on a different plane on the way down than it is on the way back. But let's take a look. So let's go. We're going to stop this club shaft plane right about, let's see, we'll do a couple. We'll stop it right. We're going to put a line right here and then put a line right on his club shaft plane. We're going to stop these hands right at the same spot here. So on the way down, now we see the hands coming out. We're going to stop the hands right here. You can see this club shaft plane is not on the same plane as it was on the way back. Now it's a different plane. So you see here, this plane is more upright. So he's got a more upright plane here. And then we're going to put actually a line here. And then on the way down, when those hands shove out towards the golf ball, this plane starts to flatten and it starts to get out over the top of the golf ball as he gets closer to impact. Now this club head falls back behind him. And now because the harder you swing around your spine, everything wants to be pulled perpendicular to your spine, which is out over the top of the golf ball. When your hands shove out towards the golf ball, and this club shaft plane starts to get pointed out over the top of the golf ball, you can't swing hard around your spine anymore because now this club shaft plane starts to get pointed out over the top of the golf ball, which happens right here. And now Moe has to stall out his body and swing across his body to the left and get that club head down to the golf ball. And you can see that happens here. He's chasing this ball with his upper body. He's having to kind of stall out his body. He's swinging off his back foot and flipping across his body to the left. This club head is all the way over here to the left. He's had to pull this club head across the golf ball. Now, granted, nobody's arguing that Moe Norman was not a great ball striker. He did this on a very consistent manner, on a very consistent basis, but he had to hit 1,000 balls a day in order to do this. You can see this as he gets to the same spot. This club shaft plane is now more flat than it was on the way back. And then as he shoves those hands out towards the golf ball, this club shaft plane gets dangerously out over the top of the golf ball. And now he can't swing hard around his spine. He has to stall out his body and swing across to the left. You can see now he's doing what's called chasing the golf ball with his body. He's not pulling through, he's pushing through. If we take a look here, same thing. Here's here's his club shaft plane right here. It's enough, we can see it, a little blurry. And then on the way down, it gets now flatter and shoved out towards the golf ball. And here it is on the way down. So it's a different plane. So he's trying to get this, make sure that this club shaft plane doesn't get pointed out over the top of the golf ball, but it's very hard to do when your hands are shoving out towards the golf ball. And now, again, he has to stall out his body and swing across his body to the left and use his hands to square the club face up. Same thing here. Here's the club shaft plane on the way back. So we're going to put a mark right on his hands. And here's the club shaft plane on the way down. And then we'll stop him in the same spot. A little bit more steep, not on the same plane. But again, this one isn't as bad. He doesn't get the club shaft plane pointed out over the top of the golf ball. So this one isn't as bad. He doesn't have to stall out his body as much. Again, we'll go this one. We're going to put a mark right on his hands here. Here's his club shaft plane. Now we're going to stop his hands in that same spot. And now, almost getting on that same spot, there's the club shaft. Now it's on a different plane. If it was on the same plane, it would be through this very same spot here. Now he's on a similar plane, but it's actually out in front of the plane that he had on the way back. So now here's his hands out here. Similar plane, but it's on a plane that's out in front of the plane that his club shaft was on the way back. So let's take, now he's got another 3-wood. We're going to take this club shaft plane. We'll stop it right here. And here's the plane on the way back. And here's the plane on the way down. Different plane on the way down than it is on the way back. And now he has to stall out his body and swing across his body to the left. Now, again, nobody's arguing that Moe Norman wasn't a great consistent ball striker, but you have to hit a lot of golf balls in order to get your arms around that technique if you're going to come over the top and swing across your body to the left, because that club shaft starts to flatten out. Now, the one thing he did have going for him is he had very strong wrists. He does flip through the golf ball, but very slightly. So we can see this right wrist going into flexion, this left wrist starting to go into extension. This left wrist starts to break down, but not a whole lot. But he had this right hand pushing through impact. I mean, if you listen to Moe, he says that his forearms never rolled over through impact. But we can clearly see that he's got this right hand pushing and his forearms have rotated through impact. Now, if we take another look here, we can see same thing. Those hands are coming over the top, swinging across the ball to the left. He's got a pretty good impact position, fairly flat left wrist, maybe a slight cupping of the left wrist. But the right hand isn't pushing a whole lot, maybe a little bit through impact. So we do have some right wrist flexion through impact. We have some left wrist extension, but not a whole lot. But he was very pretty fluid through impact, and he had that kind of recoil at the finish where he would try to push the club out in front of him. Now here he is at another clinic. And if we see what happens is, if we zoom in to his hands here, we can see this right hand pushing through impact. You can see this right wrist pushing, and we get a little bit of push and a little bit of flip. Now here's what happens. Watch his knees. When this right hand starts to push and flip through impact, then what happens is this club head passes the hands and now starts traveling up whenever we get this right hand push and this left wrist bend back through impact. So we can go another frame. See how this left wrist is breaking down, going into extension, and this right wrist is going into flexion. When that happens, the club head comes up, and in order to hit ball and ground, you have to collapse with your knees. You got to bend your knees through impact. You see these knees bent when that right hand pushes and flips. We can see it again here. He's a little bit longer iron, and he's coming over the top, and then he's pushing with his right hand. See this right hand push. This left wrist is going to break down through impact as that right hand pushes, and the club head comes up, and then you have to bend your knees to come down to the golf ball because the club head's coming up, so your body has to collapse down onto the golf ball in an effort to hit ball and ground. So same thing, and then he had that kind of recoil finish to try to hold off the pushing or flipping with the right hand. Now, some people also say that Bryson DeChambeau has a one-plane swing. Couldn't be farther from the truth. We're going to go the path of his hands on the way back. So we're going to go, here's his path, the path of his hands on the way back, and then we're going to go yellow on the way down. Now, Bryson is actually the opposite of Moe. The path of his hands on the way down is inside the path that they were on the way back. So now let's take yellow on the way down. So here is path of his hands on the way down, and we can clearly see that the path of his hands on the way down is well inside the path of his hands on the way back. This is actually very important for two main reasons. One of them is based on physics, and the other one's based on biomechanics. A little bit too much to explain here, and the club shaft is nowhere near the same plane on the way down as it was on the way back. So now this club shaft plane is well inside the plane that it was on the way back. So a couple things just to note that you just have to be careful of what you kind of see on the internet. Moe Norman's swing was definitely not a one-plane swing. Couldn't have been farther from a one-plane swing. He just hit a lot of golf balls, and he was a little bit of a savant in terms of, he just had a lot of self-confidence in what he was doing, and he didn't flip a whole lot through impact. He did flip a little bit, and he did have his hands shove out over the top from backswing to downswing, but he hit a lot of golf balls to kind of master that over the top and right hand push.